Hello, hello, people. Hello, names. Ingrid. I think maybe we could start to get started. We have Liz. We have a number of people who are ill this evening, which is, I'm sorry for everybody who's feeling under the weather. I really do appreciate everyone coming out this evening. My name is Andrea. I'm the interim director at Oakland Planning and Development Corporation. I'm here at 294 Stumple with a couple people who have come by in person and the rest of you online. This evening, we're going to be talking a little bit about air quality. And we have some folks lined up from the Breathe project to give us some updates and some news about some recent petitions before the Allegheny County Health Department by Lindy Paving to expand their operations permits, something that has some implications for air quality in Oakland, especially in South Oakland and Oak Cliff, right along the river. Meanwhile, wanted to update everybody that coming up next month, our next Let's Talk topic is going to be about community gardens. And we would really welcome any of you who have experience working with community gardens, either in Oakland or in other neighborhoods, suggestions, questions, recommendations, best practices, resources that might be available. We would love to pick your brains. So if you are at all interested, please drop us a line. And please also spread the word. We would love to be able to have a good turnout for next month, which is a good season to begin thinking about planting. So with that, I think, can I hand it over to Liz? Are you able to pick up the baton? Not sure. Is Christine?
No, I just may sound a bit froggy.
You're good.
Okay, hold on 1 second here. All right. Okay, tonight we are, I'm very sorry.
I could also, sorry, I wanted to add one more thing before we really get started with the agenda. That the mayor's office has begun a new mailing list or rather kind of an information clearinghouse for residents all over the city about what's happening in their neighborhoods, what their community groups are up to, what kinds of events are available. If you would like any information about that, drop us an email at questions@opdc. We will get you hooked up. I don't happen to have the link handy, but I might be able to get it soon from the mayor's office. Or Davon, if you're there, maybe you happen to have Lindsay's information about the new list. You could maybe drop that in the chat. I saw your avatar crop up there, and I thought maybe this reminded me of this. That's the only additional announcement that I wanted to share right now. If anybody else has other things that they want to throw out before we really get into the air quality. The other announcements?
Would you like me to do the introductions?
If you would.
Okay. First off, thank you for joining us this evening. Sorry, I sound a little bit weird, but it's been a long couple of weeks. So tonight, thankfully, we have Christine Graziano. She is a community air quality advocate and a resident of Squirrel Hill. And she's been working at this for some time now. She's seriously committed, which I hope tonight we might find some more people to join the tribe. Also, we have Deborah Smith. She is the director communications for the Breathe project, which you're going to hear more about this evening. And joining them is Tim Fitchert, who is an attorney with Fair Shake Environmental he will be able to address any legal issues or questions you may have. So I'm going to turn this over to Christine.
I thank you, Liz. Thanks for having us. I just wanted to say briefly that Tim is delayed. There was a water main break in Regent Square. He's stuck in traffic and can't get home to his computer, but he hopefully will join us. I think the best way forward would be for Deb to give an overview of the air quality in our area and some background on the Breathe project. And then I'll speak a little bit more specifically about the hyperlocal issue of the hot asphalt plant near the Birmingham Bridge and close to Oakland, and update everyone on that and give a little background. So I'm going to turn it over to Deb. Thanks for coming, Deb. I think she may need a ability to share screen too. As will I at the end when she's done. Deb, I think you're on mute.
I think everybody should be able to share their screen.
Deb might be frozen. I'm not sure.
It looks like Deb is frozen.
Let's see. Should we give it one more second and then she signed off, but maybe she's going to log back on. I can just give a couple of words here about the Breathe Collaborative, which powers the Breathe project that Deb is going to share on in a few minutes here, hopefully. The Breathe Collaborative is a sort of a consortium of interested organizations around air quality issues. So I believe the Breathe Collaborative now consists of about 63 representatives in the Western Pennsylvania area. It includes legal entities, it includes university representation, the nonprofit sector, and individuals who are associated with those community organizations. I came to work with the Breathe Project and the Breathe Collaborative through my work with reforestation. I've been in the environmental field for 20 years and working around, most recently, working around reforestation. Trees give us a wonderful benefit of absorbing pollutants from the air, trapping them on their leaves, transforming some of those compounds, and of course, giving oxygen, taking in carbon dioxide, which is one of the main pollutants in our environment that, as we all know, with all the conversation around climate change, we're trying to decrease in amount. Through my work in reforestation, I learned of the Breathe Project's work. They were very supportive. And as I learned more about our very particular air quality issues in Allegheny County, where we have some of the worst air quality in the country, surprisingly, I began to attune my senses, my attention to the East End and what was happening here. And that's how I learned more about the hot mix asphalt plant. It was basically following my nose during smell events and trying to determine what the smell signature and source was for our local area. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. I don't know what's happened with Deb. She looks like she's not getting back on. Let me send her a very quick text. And if she can't get back on, I can just launch into the Lindy aspect and hopefully she can join at the end. And it looks like Tim Fitchett is getting on now. Okay, great. Hi, Tim. Welcome. We just lost Deb briefly. So we did give a brief introduction, gave your title. We're just giving it one more minute to see if Deb gets back on. She was going to do an overview of the air quality issues in Allegheny County and the Breathe Project, and then I was going to share a bit about Lindy and then open it to discussion, you know, and have you on hand, but I'm not sure what happened. Tim, maybe as we're, go ahead, Liz, sorry.
No, I was just going to suggest that maybe Tim explains a bit about his organization.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So my name's Tim Fitchett. I'm an environmental attorney with Fairshake Environmental Legal Services. We're a nonprofit environmental law firm that works in the Appalachian Basin. So we have attorneys in Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. And so I'm based here out of the Pittsburgh office. I live in Regent Square, and Fairshake was built to try and fill the gap for legal aid in regards to environmental matters. So our founder recognized that a lot of small groups, a lot of small community groups didn't have the money or the resources to take on these big fights against these big industries. And so as a nonprofit, we're here to, like I said, fill that gap and work with community groups at a reduced rate to try and kind of even the playing field a bit.
So maybe I'll begin with a little bit around Lindy, and or we could she's actually Deb just texted that her router went down. She's trying to get back on. So oh, here she is. Okay, great. Sorry for the delay, everyone.
So sorry. Just as soon as I was ready to go, my router went down. Anyway, I hate when I haven't had any problems all day. So thank you for introducing me like 5 minutes ago. I hope you're all well tonight. And thank you, Christine, for inviting me to come on. As she mentioned, I'm with the Breathe Project. I'm the Director of Communications, and we are a coalition of residents and environmental organizations and advocates and health professionals who are using the best available science to try to improve air quality and educate people as to why our air quality here in Allegheny County is as poor as it is and what we can do about it. So we have a number of platforms and tools that we help residents to use and learn about. And I'm going to mention some of those today. And then I guess, Christine, you're still going to say something about Lindy. I'm hoping that you can address that, right? Okay. So if somebody can, if I can share screen, I was just going to run through my PowerPoint, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not really good at this. So when I share my screen and run through my PowerPoint, I cannot see you guys until the presentation is over. So when I'm done, I'll come back, and anybody who has any questions can ask some questions.
Sounds good. You should be able to share your screen.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks, Deb. I think, yep, there you go.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to move you guys down here so you don't get in the way. I guess I can't see you. All right. So this is a view of the Clairton Cove Works, and from a drone shot. And we focus a lot on the Mon Valley because that's where a lot of the poor air is coming from. Especially air quality that you might be breathing in Oakland and especially in Squirrel Hill. And I'm going to give you a little example of how that happens. Here's another angle of the Clairton Coke Works. This was taken a couple years ago, and it looks pretty much the same today. As you know, Nippon Steel out of Japan has put in a bid to buy the Coke Works. And we are not entirely sure what will come from this, but as far as we know, the Mon Valley is going to continue as it's been continuing. This plant was built in the 1940s, and it hasn't been upgraded at all over time. And as you probably know, there's been some accidents and some serious situations out here. So today, when Christine called and asked me to come on, I thought I'm going to put the plume on. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but this is plumepgh.org. This is a tool from the Create Lab. And it works in tandem with the Smell Pittsburgh app, which is smellpgh.org. And that is an app. So if you smell something really awful in your air, you can go on this site, and it takes 24 hours for it to go through. But this was a day on the 15th of February when I couldn't believe how bad it smelled. And I went out, and Mount Lebanon, which is where I am, was right where the smell is concentrated. These plumes are coming up out of the Mon Valley. This is the Clairton plant and the Braddock plant. So you can see how the air travels, the poor air travels right into Pittsburgh from the Mon Valley. And then today, Mark Dixon posted this. This is a picture of the Breathe Cam. So this is another tool that we have where we have cameras trained on the Braddock plant, the Clairton plant, and also up in Beaver County on the Shell plant. And when we, again, notice that we're getting spikes in poor air, we can go on and look and see what's going on. And a lot of times it's coupled by an inversion, which is a weather system that comes in and presses down on the air, and it keeps the pollution in. But again, it spreads out. It causes a haze across our region. And this was just today. So the best way to understand our air quality, I think, on a day-to-day basis is to download the EPA's app called airnow.gov. And you can follow every day. I mean, some days it's good, but 2/3 of the year, our air quality is not good. And this was actually a screenshot taken during a wildfire day last summer. So as you can see, red is like as bad as it gets. But our region is in the top 1% of counties in the United States for cancer from air pollution. And every April, the American Lung Association comes out with its scientific review of the worst air quality cities in the country. And we are always among the top 20%. The worst air really is out near LA in the Bay Area out there, where there's a lot of Phillips 66 and industrial plants. And they have a lot of inversions, and it kind of sits on the coast. And then there's Pittsburgh. So it's kind of crazy that our air quality is right up there with some of the worst air when you've got all the traffic and the highway systems that they have out there, that we rank right up there with them. It's a little scary. One of the things that the Breathe Project does is we support our frontline residents. So this is a group of residents from Clairton that we work with called VCAN. And this was on the Title V hearing day when the Allegheny County Health Department came down to talk to listen to testimony about the air quality permit, which was actually this time around, it was denied. And there was another hearing recently, about a month ago. So, you know, the residents are very active, and we encourage residents we have Squirrel Hill residents that are also very active, and Pittsburgh area residents that are active. And I just want to show you that first. And they formed a group called the Southwestern PA Grassroots Town Hall. And every 2 months, they have a town hall on a different subject. And they bring in experts. And in March, on March 5th, they're going to be having a town hall on the Clean Air Fund. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, the Clean Air Fund is a fund that was created by all the fines that the U.S. Steel Company has had to pay, and it's gone into this fund. And the money is supposed to go to help the residents in the community to find better ways to improve their own health, you know, maybe giving it to children, maybe opening an asthma clinic. Unfortunately, the Clean Air Fund has been going to things that really aren't helping the Mon Valley, like electric buses elsewhere in the region, or solar panels in the South Hills. So we just want to bring it to the attention of more people that this money is available and it should be going to the residents. It should not be going for other things. Now, when we're not talking about the Mon Valley, we're usually probably talking about the Shell Petrochemical Plant, which, as you know, is in Beaver County. And this is a plant that's making lovely plastic nurdles. Recently, the Shell plant exceeded its emissions, and within the period of 1 month, it exceeded its permit for a whole year on VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds. As a result of that, several groups filed a lawsuit, and they were successful in obtaining a $10 million amount that's going to again go into a fund that should be helping local residents. So we've been keeping an eye on that because we want to make sure that money actually really gets to the people who need it the most. The group up in Beaver called the Beaver County Marcellus Awareness Community has formed a group called Eyes on Shell. And they've been able to, through grants, to hire someone who keeps an eye on the emissions levels coming out of the plant because of all the problems that they've had up there. So they still are not fully online up there at the Shell plant, but until they are, and even after they are, it's probably going to the emissions will probably get worse. But this group meets every month and they go over findings and information that they've obtained. As many of you know, I know that you're probably aware that we just passed the 1-year anniversary of the East Palestine rail derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, which also involved Darlington, Pennsylvania, which is in Beaver County. And this has raised a lot of alarms in Pittsburgh because we have bomb trains that go right through our city. So a group has formed called Rail Pollution Protection Pittsburgh. And that group is in the process. They already have a chapter in Polish Hill. And we're opening up more chapters if we have residents to support them to educate people as to what they can do to prevent this rail traffic from bringing hazardous materials like vinyl chloride right through the middle of the city. If there was a disaster in Pittsburgh like there was in East Palestine, it could be devastating. So right now they're working on the Rail Protection Safety Act and getting that passed. Those of you who might be interested in learning more about this can sign up for their regular newsletter to get updates on this through www.railpollutionprotectionpittsburgh.com. So you might ask yourself, what can you do to improve your air? So I would be interested in hearing what residents in Oakland experience. I know Christine's going to talk a little bit about what's going on in Uptown and with the Lindy plant. I think the number one thing that you can do is to vote for candidates who understand how unhealthy our air is. And we are very pleased to say that Sarah Annamarato has regularly come and spoken to many of our groups prior to being elected and said that she will do something about the Allegheny County Health Department issues, hiring people within the health department who actually have health credentials. Right now, a lot of the board positions at the health department are expiring. So we are going to the health department regularly to remind them that they need to fill these seats with people who understand air quality and who understand health. So the other things that you can do, download the apps, like I mentioned, Smell Pittsburgh, take a look at the plume. And there's also a group called ROCKUS, Reducing Outdoor Contaminants in Indoor Spaces, and they do cohorts in individual communities where they lend you some really high quality air quality monitors, and you can see how the outside air affects your inside air. This is actually an old slide, but this was a big win because the EPA just recently agreed to tighten pollution standards. So the standard has now been tightened from 12 to 8. I'm sorry, 9. We were hoping for 8, but they ended up going with 9. So you can see more and learn more about soot, which is particulate matter, which is coming straight out of the plant and settling in your communities on our website. And the other thing is join the many people who are telling stories about air quality in the region and get involved. So we hope that you might be interested in learning more, and we're happy to help you do that. Thank you so much.
Thank
Deb?
you. Go ahead, Christine.
Oh, no, go ahead, Liz. I was just saying thank you.
Yeah, that's all. That's all I was doing in my little croaky way here too. So it's better you talk than me.
Well, Deb, maybe I'll speak about Lindy and then briefly, and then we can just take collective questions at the end. Does that sound like a plan, or would you like to, should we pause?
That's fine. Go for it.
Liz, how do you feel about that? Do you think that's the best way, or should we pause for
No,
questions?
that sounds fine. If anybody has any questions that they would like to ask, you can either raise your hand, after Christine speaks, raise your hand or put them into the chat. Okay. All yours, Christine.
Thank you. So some of you may have been at previous talks. I'm just going to give a brief contextual background so that you are oriented. The Lindy Group owns a hot on 2nd Avenue near the Birmingham Bridge, adjacent to it. They own a hot mix asphalt production facility. Lindy supplies the city of Pittsburgh contractors, many of the contractors who purchase asphalt under paving contracts with the city of Pittsburgh. They get their asphalt from the Lindy plant here and others in our general area. Just to orient you further, the Lindy plant is located within the Oak Cliff community boundaries. It has a relationship with both District 6 and District 3 in that regard. So we're looking at the Lindy plant here for the most part. Here's a aerial. The site ownership is a little bit complicated. The entire parcel, so the Lindy plant is here, and on the other side, so that's here, on the other side of the bridge.
Excuse me, Christine.
Sure.
Is everybody seeing this image, or is it just me? It's not.
I can't see anything either.
I'm
I
seeing a
can't see it.
screen
There's no-
with loading.
There we
There.
go.
Okay, thank you.
So you're not seeing any images right
No,
now?
it just came
Now we
on.
can.
Oh, okay. So let me go back then. Maybe I'll just run it this way instead of full slideshow if it's not. Let me try. Tell me if you can see this. Can you see that?
Yes.
Everyone can see that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, let me go back briefly. So here's the Oak Cliff boundary and the district boundary. Lindy, I don't know if you can see my cursor. Can you see my cursor moving?
Yes.
Yes, it's on the one side of the bridge there over by Technology Drive. The parcel ownership is a little bit complicated. On one side of the bridge, over here is the Lindy facility. They own only a sliver of the property as we understand it, this little piece here, and they rent the rest of the land from what is now called Heidelberg Cement. This is a global corporation based in Germany that now owns the cement works here. So they are Lindy's landlord. the proximity to Uptown is notable. And I just wanted to note here that Uptown has done extensive work in the past on something called an eco district, where they are trying to build Uptown in a way that's focused on both job growth and economic opportunity and making it a healthier place for residents. So this is the location of this facility may be in some conflict with those goals. I do want to note that our understanding is that Lindy employs approximately 6 people full-time and maybe less. Some of those employees may be part-time, but that's our understanding. The facility is operating under something called, if I have the terminology right, an administrative type of overstay on their permit. So every 5 years, this designated synthetic minor facility, as opposed to a Title V, which is what Clairton Coke Works is, a much sort of larger facility classified as a more polluting entity. So the synthetic minor facility is supposed to be re-permitted every 5 years for air quality control. And their permit expired a couple of years ago, and they've been in this administrative overstay. They had submitted their new permit on time, but it hadn't been processed by the Allegheny County Health Department until recently. To everyone's surprise, they released the draft permit over the summer and held a public hearing at which many of us who had been keeping an eye on this permit process were unable to attend. We had been given the impression there was a backlog. It was summer vacation. A number of people were away. We rallied as fast and quickly as we could. Luckily, we had done a lot of work prior. So we were able to compile a letter that requested the health department consider a number of things in their draft permit. And we asked for modifications to that draft in the final issuance. One of the images we included in our letter was this. This is data gathered from what Deb mentioned as the Smell PGH app. So that collects smell complaints over time from people who are users of the app. There's a place where you can write a descriptor of the smell. So we worked with a scientist to use the data in the open source platform that is Smell PGH, and ask them to identify for us complaints that indicated an asphalt smell over the 6-year period of the app. And lo and behold, smell complaints with asphalt sent in the descriptor centered around the Lindy plant. So this is sort of like a hot spot for emissions. Now, I think the most important thing about this slide is that their current permit and the drafted new permit states that their emissions cannot leave the boundaries of their site. So if, as this map shows, we are smelling Lindy, and if you zoom out, you will see additional reports of asphalt smells, but it's very concentrated around the site itself. If we are smelling it outside of its boundaries, that's a pretty good indication that the emissions are leaving the boundaries. And we've since been able to capture video showing those emissions leaving the boundaries from the point source of the stack that those emissions originate from. So this shows you here the permitted emissions under their old permit and the proposed emissions. So the new permit is actually asking for an increase in production overall. So a few 100,000 more tons of production of asphalt per year. And with that comes expected increase in pollutants. So you can see that some of them jump significantly. In one case, nearly doubling carbon monoxide, for example. And they ask for the elimination of a limitation on formaldehyde and monitoring for it. So that disappears as well. They ask also to stop being able to have any limits seasonally on their production schedule. So currently they were supposed to stop production at the end of October, and they're asking for year-round production. That is potentially significant from a health perspective, because when trees have leaves on them, they help buffer our lungs, protect our health by absorbing and mitigating some of the impacts of those pollutants. They act as a buffer. So if they're emitting during times when we do not have leaves on the trees, in some of these warmer winter months, warmer days in our winter months now, we lose that protection additionally. So, I won't go into all the details of each emission, but, formaldehyde does have some health impacts, for example, and we can go a little bit more into that, the health impacts perhaps another time too, and maybe focus specifically on that. What can you do? The most important thing we can do at this point is to use the Allegheny County Health Department's phone number or website complaint form to lodge a complaint anytime you smell something. So even if it's not, you're not for sure certain that it's the asphalt plant, our air quality, our ability to respond to the health department's ability to respond to these complaints hinges on them getting an actual complaint through their website or through their phone. So without that, they have no incentive to act for the most part. So that's the first and foremost thing. The other thing is to use Smell PGH. A report gets sent to the health department every night from that app. I won't get into whether or not they use that data effectively or not, but it is a useful tool, and it helps you and protects you, because you can see when there are widespread complaints, which indicates that we're having an inversion or a major smell event. So you can kind of stay indoors or do what you need to do if you're concerned. If you ever pass the plant and you see emissions, you can photograph it, video it with date and time and position. The health department loves that kind of data. You can send it to me, you could send it to Deb. And then since we've been waiting on this final permit issuance, we've learned that another thing we can do is to advocate for a switch in the contracting and procurement process at the city and county level to what's called a warm mix. So the hot mix gives off sort of the most emissions, and a warm mix would give off less emissions, not only in the production, but in the application on our roadways, which is another source of pollution from asphalt. And it is entirely feasible. PennDOT now specifies it. There's data behind it that it's going toward that it works, and there's a push in the industry toward that standard. On a recent webinar where Lindy's sustainability director, a newly created position after the permit hearing, we were able to pose the question, how difficult is it to switch your hot mix facilities to warm mix? And they said, not difficult at all. All you have to do is change the temperature. It just has to be a demand from the market. So we kind of have them on record saying, no big deal to make this switch. That was a request in our permit letter. So we do have an advocate in city council for that. Erica Strasburger seems to be in favor of this. She has forwarded that information to DOMI, and has asked PWSA if they'd be willing. They had a favorable response. If the city changes their standard, they can only follow what the city does. So if you can write to your district council person, let Erica Strasburger know you're in favor of this as well. District 3, Bob Charland, he is Oak Cliff's representative. Our understanding is he may not find this issue to be of great importance right now, so he does need to hear from the community at large that this is a concern. The other thing that has emerged recently, the EPA has awarded our ad hoc grassroots type group as part of a larger consortium under GASP, which is another air quality group in the area, resources to buy 16 air monitors and put up what are called Sensit pods. Those do air grab samples. So we can actually grab air during a smell event near the Linde plant, and in a concentric radius, from that source outward, and send it to a laboratory and find out what's in our air. We did our first grab as a test last month, and we did find that there are some compounds in there that are exceeding what should be in there, but we need a little more information, and it's only one sample. So if you're interested in being a host location for a monitor, a purple air monitor, or a Sensit pod, which is where we will keep grabbing the air from, we would love to talk to you and help evaluate the site for that, and have a deeper conversation. So that will kick off as soon as the EPA releases funds, which should be hopefully no later than this coming fall. So that's some good news as we await the final issuance. We've also, here are a few links to show you where to learn more about the warm mix, and I can drop those in the chat too. We've been working with Fairshake Environmental to understand our options. The final issuance will trigger the opportunity for an appeal if we don't agree with what's in the final permit, but it does have a cost to it. Somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 is expected, so we need to raise funds in order to position ourselves to even be able to appeal any final decision if we're not happy, and make it more protective. So we're working on that. The other thing you can also consider doing, there's an all-in-all meeting with Sarah Innamorato, 2 more coming up with the transition team. The Linde president is on the transition team of Sarah's. And so what we say at those meetings should be heard by Linde. And I think one of the things, that can be said is please be responsive to the community. There are also other meetings we can consider going to as a block or even as individuals. The Board of Health, they are meeting next on March 6th and March 8th. There are the Air Advisory Subcommittee meetings that happen between the Board of Health meetings. And then there's the County Council meetings where we can advocate for warm mix specification at the county level, and also let them know that we do not feel that their permit language is protective of enough of our health if the current draft permit and the operating permit that they're under now is allowing for these kinds of smell events. So I'm going to stop there. Tim is on the call from Fairshake. He can talk a little bit about, legal aspects, the appeal, and also there was a successful community effort in Chicago against a hot mix asphalt plant, and the community won. So there's some precedent for pushing back against these facilities being emitters so close to high populations like ours. We have 86,000 people, I believe, in proximity to this plant. So I'm going to stop there and stop my share.
Thank you very, very much, Christine. I have a question to kick off the questions. And again, if anybody else has questions, please raise your hand. Okay, we can call you up there. Other than making more money, what justifications has Linde given for the need to raise all these emission levels?
That's a good
Don't they
question.
have to say why?
Well, they haven't spoken to us as a community directly. Before the permit hearing, we approached them, I believe, 4 separate times, 2 officially with letters, and then 2 sort of back channel attempts to talk to their who is the person who's now their sustainability director. And we're pretty much rebuffed. They said they weren't going anywhere and they weren't going to be talking to us because we had quote unquote put them on notice that we were concerned. So it seemed to indicate the conversation was closed. In the permit itself, they don't really give too much justification. I was able to glean a little bit of information from talking with the health department engineer reviewing the permit. It does seem that they just want to be able to produce more, and it does possibly seem tied with the BRT project and PWSA's resurfacing projects after lead line replacement. But it also is on trend. Every 5 years, in review of their permits, they ask for a production increase. So it just seems that this is par for the course. They are going to hit a limit, and I think Tim can talk about this more than I can, and Deb, but they will hit a limit of production at some point. If they exceed a certain tonnage per year, they then, I think, shift into a category of a major facility, a Title V. But I'm not 100% sure about that. So
Yeah, that is accurate, Christine. They are currently under what's called a synthetic miner permit. And effectively a synthetic miner permit is they look at all the emissions. If it was essentially to run 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and if you hit certain emissions limits, that makes you a Title V major source permit and subjects you to a lot more. But they can keep themselves as what's called a synthetic miner by agreeing to reductions in their production. We're only going to be open so many hours a day, so many days a year, or only so much tonnage is going to come out. And so their limits will be, under those major source thresholds. So that's how they manage to kind of avoid the higher level of scrutiny.
But the onus is put on the public to literally babysit these people to make sure that they're not going over their limit.
Well, it's more of, from a chemistry standpoint, they can only, if they're making X amount of asphalt, they can only possibly be emitting X amount of these various pollutants. And so it's really an equation that they do to determine, if they only produce this amount of tonnage, then that means they should not be going over their limits. And they have to put in reports on the amount of tonnage of asphalt that they're producing. That's how it's kind of watchdogged from the DEP side.
So who do they report to?
They should be reporting to the DEP with the amounts of their production.
But not to the county that actually grants the permits.
they do get reports to the county as well.
To the county, yes, I'm sorry.
Does anybody else have a question?
I just want to add that with the reporting, it's based on modeling, right, Tim, where they have, they're projecting their emissions based on how much they're producing in a given day, month, et cetera. And then they submit these reports, but I think it's every 6 months, but I think the county actually only goes out to the facility unless there's a problem or suspected issue once a year to do any. No, yeah, once every 5 years to do a test. So, yeah, they don't, it's kind of an honor, a little bit of an honor system, really. It's in a lot of ways.
That's
There's
scary
no-
to me.
There's no fence line monitoring going on, for example, so.
My other question is, right now, is there a schedule of times that they're allowed to be operating? Do they have to, like, they can't be doing 24/7?
They are,
I
they
understand.
they seem to have already, I have documented them operating in November and December. So they had, and that was the case last year too. So they do seem to be operating under their proposed operating hours as opposed to was their listed limited hours and months prior. But I brought it to the attention of the health department. I think, Tim, maybe you've reviewed it as well. And I'm not,
Mm.
I don't know what you've.
Yeah, it does look like they are functioning as if they've already gotten their new.
In that case, if do you have any kind of a template of a letter that the residents can, work around to send into city council, to the mayor's office, to the county, the whole shebang? Is there, because sometimes, you can write just a short, oh, there's things in there, but it'd be great to have bullet points for the residents that they could refer to when they're writing. Do you have anything like that?
I don't have anything like that, but I'd be happy to create something like that for the group.
That would be great. We can post that on our site and share with all the community groups, so. All right, okay. Well, are there any other questions? Okay, well, thank
would-
you.
Liz, I don't know if anyone would
One
like
other
to
question.
about, oh, go ahead, Joan.
Oh, sorry, I didn't. Go, Joan.
I was wondering, is there any way that the dust is being measured? I noticed that, well, I don't usually get my car washed, see, and I got my car washed, and I noticed that in a 2-week period, there was as much dust on my car as when the steel mills were here.
Recently,
Is there any way to, is that part of your measurement or what?
So sometimes dust will get picked up as it's called PM 2.5 or PM 10 particulate matter of
Okay.
various sizes. So that can
Mhm.
get picked up in some sampling. The difficulty with it is pinning it on Lindy,
Okay,
right?
okay, yeah,
No.
yeah, it could be the hospital.
Right. And it's a problem that happens a lot in the environmental, especially in the air context. It's one of the ways that Clairton has managed to kind of avoid a lot of responsibility for a long time. Is anytime somebody says, look, these numbers are off the chart, you're like the only thing around, and they say, well, it could have been that other plant or this other
Yeah,
factor.
okay.
Same thing happens with like medical issues, right?
Mm.
Clearly all the people in Clairton are getting sick from the coke works, but actually making the
Yeah.
legal connection is much more
Okay,
difficult.
yeah, so there's no clear-cut way of measuring that and attributing that to them.
Without,
Oh,
you
okay.
potentially do testing of the dust and say this, is
Mhm.
matches what's coming out of the factory. But again, that kind of gets into the difficulties and the expenses doing that. But there was this MAT asphalt case that Christine did want me to mention. And this was I believe in Chicago. I may be mixing that up. But what they did is they brought a class action lawsuit against the plant for odors, for the trespass. There was a similar class action trespass case brought against Clairton Coke Works that settled around 4 years ago. This asphalt one is fairly new. And what they were able to do through that process was get the asphalt plant to agree to somewhere around, I think, $45 million worth of upgrades, as well as
Mhm.
$1.2 million of, settlement money that actually went out
Mhm.
to the community. And so, when you take that amount and split it amongst the 86,000 residents, it might only be a couple of $100 per person. But the class action is a way to kind of um, get them to make changes to their operations, get them to make changes to the factory itself, and get some, recompense for the community.
Mhm.
So this matte asphalt was, one example of that actually working out relatively recently.
Mhm.
This was just in December 12th, 2023, uh, that and sorry, it was only actually $900,000 worth of improvements now that I'm looking at it. I was thinking of another plant, and I apologize for that. But still, it can be an effective lever.
There
Mhm.
recently was, I believe, the Clairton US Steel settled on a fire that occurred at the plant a couple of years back.
Yes, that was the like Christmas
Is
Eve
that,
fire. I believe it was in 2021.
yeah,
And what happened in that case was the fire was in a building that housed their hydrogen sulfide scrubbers. And so the hydrogen sulfide is that eggy smell, that rotten egg smell that you smell from these plants. And effectively, they were running without that pollution reduction tool. And instead of actually fixing it or reducing their um, production, they just released the hydrogen sulfide to the public in violation of their permit, but also in violation. I mean, it was brought as a nuisance case it was making people's eyes water, making their throats hurt, exacerbating asthma. And so that was another, class action that settled, but it was really around the harms that occurred in that like 3-month period when the scrubbers were down.
okay. Now, also my understanding is that the Shell plant has had just a history from the day it opened
Yeah.
of malfunctions of this, that, and just about everything. But
Mhm.
I mean, Beaver County, there was the economic and I don't know what you want to call it, that the agreement that they made with Shell on building that there. I mean, it seems like people weren't really told what it was going to be.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of different groups that are working on a lot of different aspects of the problems that have come around the Beaver County cracker plant. It does seem like a situation where every environmental group that I'm involved with was saying, hey, all of these terrible things are going to happen. Don't do it. Don't do it. They're lying. These terrible things are going to happen. The jobs aren't going to be there. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. They did it anyway. And now all of those environmental groups are going back to all of those, the DEP, the ACHD, the government, and saying, we told you a bunch of times. But now it's in the phase of sort of remedial action through legal hooks that we have, whether that's class action, Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, or whatnot.
Well, if anybody has any other questions, you can forward them to me and I will forward them on. We will get all the information together from tonight's meeting in the chat, all those great links that Christina's posted and Deb. And Tim, if you could give us a set of bullet points to incorporate into a letter that the residents can use, that would be absolutely wonderful. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I hope to see you all next month when we talk gardens. community gardens, any kind of garden, okay? You take
Sounds
care
much
now.
nicer than this topic.
And if anyone, Liz, thank you. I'm gonna just drop my email in the chat too. You have it though, Liz, so all questions to you, feel free to connect, but thank you for hosting this, and thanks Tim and Deb. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Take care, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you for everything you're doing for all of us. It is truly appreciated.
You
So
too.
I'll say good night then.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.